Hello there and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. Well, Trinidad and Tobago has its first conviction under the Trafficking in Persons Act. However, the convict, which is Anthony Smith, well, he's missing. Yes, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service actually cannot find him after there was a signal from his ankle bracelet, which he was mandated to wear according to a court order. Well, that ankle bracelet somehow was tampered with, and now he absconded in terms of his sentencing. But exactly, is this something to celebrate? Yes, the first person is convicted, but you have an individual with multiple charges against them on the run from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, and yet we held a press conference to celebrate this achievement. Well, speak a bit more about this morning as I welcome to the program former opposition Senator Marcia Walker, and she's with us via Zoom. She's also, by the way, that's just one of her many titles of which she's held, because she is an advocate, a child's rights advocate actually, and she's with us via Zoom. Good morning, welcome to the program.
Good morning, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for joining me this morning.
I laughed when you said, is it something to celebrate?
That's actually my very first question, because the Minister of National Security, he held a press conference. He said despite the absconding of Smith, that it was actually good news for Trinidad and Tobago and even reflects well in regards to our international reputation.
Yeah. Well, time will tell. I am not 100% sure when the next U.S. State Department report is due to come out. I honestly don't think that they will look at this in a good light. The last report, they would have said that, even though we put laws in place, which was the last time in the last administration, that was the last time we had an improvement in our rating. But since, of course, the legislation that was put into place in 2012, nothing, came out of it. I think 2011, we had an amendment in 2012. But nothing has come out of it. And the US has continued to say in the report that senior officials, high-ranking officials, remain complicit. That, to me, in this particular case, if you read the media release from the judiciary, it's very telling, because the last line, the very last line, the judiciary says that, they passed over the transcript of the case because the victim would have testified that some of Mr. Smith's clients were police officers. That, of course, raises a lot of questions. The counter-trafficking unit, they would have taken a statement from the victim in November of 2015. So in November of 2015, I'm certain they would have tried to figure out, okay, who are your clients? Who's Mr. Smith's clients? You're not just going to go after Smith himself, right? You're going to say, you're trying to figure out who's the big fish. You're trying to, make a deal to figure out if you could go higher up the chain. And somewhere along the line, I'm certain in 2015, the fact that, his clients included police officers should have come out. So, that's a question that I certainly think the media needs to be pushing. What's going on? I can't believe that only now, after the transcript of, this 2023 hearing, only now an investigation, is being launched into these officers. I cannot believe that. So if you really study the case, I think that puts us, I don't know, I think it puts us in a worse position. Yes, there is something to celebrate that we've finally gotten a conviction. But, there's so many questions around this conviction that I can't see the U.S. celebrating the way that the minister celebrated.
Well, you're surprised, and I'm not, because I'm thinking this is Trinidad and Tobago. Very unfortunate.
And, it's frustrating.
It is very frustrating because it's rather absurd, isn't it, that you call a press conference to celebrate the first conviction, but then the individual, the subject, is not there. But it also reflects on multiple aspects of the police service. For example, what's going on with the ankle bracelet there and that unit of the TTPS?
Yeah. No, if you, I mean, I really try to study as much information as that we have in the public domain. This girl would have dropped out of school at, in 2014. So the crimes were committed against her from 2014 to 2015, right? So, she would have dropped out of school. The press release says that, various information tells us she'd have dropped out of school. So where was the Ministry of Education at that point in time? And I'm thinking in 2023, there are school dropouts with thousands of children who have dropped out of school. The Ministry of Education admits that in many cases, they cannot find the child. And of course, we know, given COVID and everything, that the economic situation has caused that, increase in school dropout. So there's a trend, right? You saw that this girl dropped out of school, answered an ad to work in a bar, and that's how grooming takes place. Before trafficking, there is grooming. So where was the Ministry of Education? Why didn't the Ministry of Education pursue this child who had dropped out of school? And I hope that this situation makes our Ministry of Education really buck up in finding children that have dropped out of school. Whether it be we put out, the same way we have missing persons ads, we have to find the children that have dropped out of school. Because had the Ministry of Education done their job in 2014, I'm saying 2014, whether it be 2013, 2014, but had they pursued this child, then, maybe that would have been the first step to preventing it, because we would have gotten her back in school. At the time, the Children's Authority was just legislation. It wasn't operationalized yet. So I can't necessarily point fingers at the Children's Authority. Of course, we could say, had the legislation been in place earlier. But, this is where, to me, this is the first place that the powers that be dropped the ball. And that, that I know Hines and they and we tend to politicize these issues. So I know they'll say, well, that was a UNC Minister of Education. It doesn't matter who it is. We need to put things in place, and we have to learn from the situation. The first point where we can save our children from ending up, from being trafficked, if they drop out of school, we have to make a concerted effort to find them. And that, for me, is what I'm very worried about, because in 2023, we have children that have dropped out of school. And, the Minister of Education, the current Minister of Education, is saying that you can't find them. And that's not good enough. That response is not good enough, especially given this case. We now know for sure school dropouts can be groomed. Poverty can lead them into doing things that they don't want to do. Now we do have a Children's Authority, because using that particular case, again, what would have happened is the mother should have, been paid a visit, because this child was obviously not living with the mother, because of, again, that's information in the public domain, right? She was given accommodation somewhere in east of Trinidad. So the mother should be charged with neglect or something like that. There's a lot of information that we don't know with regards to this case, but we can certainly learn from it. So in, a school dropout, we need to visit, find out why the child not living with the parent, where's the child living? These are the things that, because we need to move to preventing. So that's one thing. It really, really, really reflects badly on the judicial system. Things that should have taken 3 months, that in every other country takes 3 months, it takes 3 years. And so, again, in the politicizing of it all, people will say, well, look, is UNC lawyers fighting for bail? And yes, we are fighting for bail, because it isn't right that somebody sits for 7, 8 years waiting on a trial date. So that's why we do have to put things like, ankle bracelets and whatnot in place. But yeah, you're right. These ankle bracelets and whatnot need to work. But I think the judicial system needs to work so that, 3 months does not become 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Get the cases pushed through, especially something like this, where it is, we are on the brink of being blacklisted. We are on the last tier, the tier 2 watch list for human trafficking, but trafficking in persons, based on the US State Department report and whatnot. And, so we should have wanted to really push it through. Now we saw that happen in 2013. So after it went through the magistrate's court, and the court said, okay, look, you need to stand trial at the High Court and whatnot. So throughout, he was on bail, and he had different, he kept going back to. So I'm thinking, as a lawyer here, I don't know what it was, but basically, it would say, well, listen, it's been 2 years, it's been 3 years, we can't be in jail, so let's do something. Then, okay, can't be 24 hours house arrest because you're messing with my income, so let's do something else. And of course, that's where the timeliness, affects it, because the longer we take, it becomes a human rights issue. The person has to be allowed to work. How can we allow them to work? So we put this ankle bracelet on and whatnot, right? Okay. But in February, I could double check the media release, but I'm nearly certain. In February of this year, you had, it reached to the High Court, and they began this case management system, where the judge would have gone through, y'all have everything ready, y'all have your witnesses, you have your evidence, and all right, and you give them a date. And I think the date was set in April. They got a date for September.
Mm-hmm.
I think that at that point, we really, somebody needs to be speaking out against that judge, because at that point, bail would have come up, the issue for bail would have come up again. And the magistrate must have been able to, case management has happened. So you've seen the file, and you know that you're going to go to trial in September. So there's nothing stopping the magistrate at that point in time to say, okay, you've had your 7 years, you've worked, you've had your freedom, the case is about to start, revoke your bail. And that is why, we always say we're not asking for bail, it's not like mandatory bail. We're saying that there should be a right to apply for bail. So, okay, he's gotten bail, he's been out, but from the time the trial has gone to the High Courts, from the time the case management has started, the committal, that whole process, the judge should have at that point said, bail revoked, spend a few months in jail, wait for your trial. Every single day.
Ms. Walker, let me just interrupt for a moment there, because even in regards to bail is one thing, but going back to the issue of the electronic monitoring unit of the Ministry of National Security, and focusing on that just for a moment, he was wearing an ankle bracelet, and that was an order from the High Court. And then what takes place is that at the trial, and reporters did ask about this actually during this press conference. They actually asked a question to Woman Police Corporal Dane Marie Marshall in regards to any suggestions that there were police officers who were actually involved in illegal activity as part of this case. She paused for a moment. She didn't know how to respond. She said she was confused by the question. The Minister of National Security had to interject. His response was in regards to the police having to defend themselves. So, okay, we're speaking about bail,
and
but
what is
even the gap between the time of the High Court ruling, he has to wear this bracelet, to the time his trial began on September 18th, it seems as though the TTPS, I don't know what was going on there. I don't know how they were functioning, but clearly they're incapable of actually even running an EMU.
Yeah. No, and that's why I feel as though the U.S. will not celebrate this victory. They will not count it as a victory. There are definite questions. In the press release, it was very interesting, in the press conference, it was very interesting that, the female officer, when she was giving her account, she spoke about foreign national and whatnot, right? But she never spoke about the fact that the last client of Mr. Smith was a police officer. He never gave that information. These kinds of, and it can only sound like a cover-up, and we have to be careful, right? The entire world is looking on, because we more and more we're being seen as a space, as a uncontrolled space for these sex acts, right? From our Google, we were number 3 in the world for Googling porn. And then as we go down, it seems as though we're not going down because we no longer have an appetite for porn, but because we have, prostitution comes to your door for $100, for $300, because it's just so easily available, So the appearance where, you know, the police officer who spoke at the press conference didn't come out and say, listen, we had police officers that were involved. And maybe if she had said that, you know, that would have prompted the media at that point in time to right then and there ask, are any investigations underway with regards to the clients that were police officers? Because we're seeing now that police officers were clients of Mr. Smith, and his ankle bracelet goes missing.
It's all too
Convenience.
isn't it? Yes, convenience is the correct word. I'm not going to even say coincidental. It's convenient. And now, tying back the situation to the number of charges and the point that you were making about the Minister of Education, let me just tie something in here for a moment, something that's completely separate but actually adds to the point. Ms. Walker, this is just one case, but if you take a look, if we're speaking generally about children out there, if you drive up and down the highway, you see many a times children actually who are out of school, and the argument is, well, we can't afford to send them to school. Now, that's an issue in itself. But children are out of school, working up and down the highway to sell products, and you have adults, many times I see them, sitting under the tree shading. But I am certain...
Which is an illegal act.
Exactly. So I'm certain that the TTPS passes and sees these things taking place, and I'm certain that Trinidad is a small nation, that the Ministry of Education must be aware that this is taking place. So all around, it's a complete breakdown in our systems.
It is, absolutely. I mean, look at the PH system. When we spoke about regularizing the PH system, let's go to COVID. When we spoke about, you know, the PH and Stuart Young at the time, I think it was Stuart Young, he said that was part of the fabric of society. You know, that to me really summed up Trinidad and Tobago. We normalize illegal activity. Illegal activity, breaking the law, has become a fabric of society. And we have to get, there's no point, and, you know, sometimes, I mean, obviously, as a parliamentarian myself, we go into parliament, we talk about laws, and then I wonder, you know, are we wasting time? Because if we're not going to enforce it, then what's the point? What's the point of spending all that money on electricity for the Red House to turn on, for us to come in there? And the laws seem to be nothing but paper, you know, cobweb catching.
Mm-hmm. It's just about a week since this particular press conference was held. It's just been a week. We have no updates thus far in regards to this police search for Anthony Smith. And I don't know.
It's gone. You know, they are depending on that 90 memory, you know. So, but I would like the media to continue to push. You know, I really want the media to continue to push. We need to know about the police officers. We have to find out. Because what's interesting is that the judiciary said that, you know, the transcript went to the counter-trafficking unit. It was the same unit that would have started the investigation in 2015. You know, why didn't it go to, you know, the commissioner of police? You know, we need to know what's the deal with his clients. Mm-hmm. Because those people also broke the law. Those people also had sex with a minor. Those people also paid to have sex with a minor. So they were involved in trafficking. We had police officers, right? That's one thing we know for sure. And we cannot let up, you know, we cannot stop. We have to continue. And, you know, I really beg the media to continue to push and press what's going on with the police officers that were clients, the police officers that raped this little girl. We need to know what's going on with them. And the report says there are senior government officials, high-ranking officials involved in human trafficking, right? And if we cannot even investigate the police officers that we know that police officers had sex with this little girl. You know, this does not augur well. It really does not augur well. Will victims come forward now? Because this little girl's life is in danger. We need to know, is she being protected? What's the state's track record to protect witnesses?
Ms. Marsha Walker, in 2016, he applied for bail. He was granted $2 million bail, which is incredible that he was able to even make $2 million in bail, but that probably just goes to show you the extent of his operations. Bear in mind, he was the operator of a bar as well. But apart from this, this is really interesting. His attorney at law, Kristen J. Williams, assured the Justice I.S. Caesar that his client would not abscond because he noted that his client was making himself available on a weekly basis.
Yeah. No, so the client, and that's why I was speaking about bail and each step of the way. Okay, so he stayed because he probably thought, listen, I am not going to be the unlucky fool to be convicted. This happens in Trinidad every day and nobody gets convicted. So once he was out on bail, once he was able to work, he was happy. He didn't need to leave Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad is a land of getaway free. So that's why I believe, there was no need at that point in time. He attended court again because these things, you reach the court and your first day, and then you're in court again for 10 years. So I think that he depended on the failure of our system. I think by day 2 and day 3, when he realized he was going to be convicted, that's when things changed. And that's why I said, the issue of bail would have come up every single day. So day 1 of court, day 2 of court, the judge must have known. The same way he knew, listen, this thing coming down to the end, I'm going to be Trinidad's first convicted. The judge should have said at that point, we are revoking your bail, spend some time in prison and wait for the trial to finish in prison.
Ms. Walker, we are more or less out of time.
I think that's the part where we really, really fell down. We gave him his 7 years, his 8 years to continue to do what he was doing. But from the time you started to hear evidence, day 1, day 2, that bail should have been revoked.
I think what's also interesting to note is back in 2016, he was ordered to surrender his passport as part of bail conditions. But as you said, this is TNT. He's most likely gone. Yeah, he's most likely gone. You don't need a passport to enter or exit TNT.
This person makes a living trafficking people. So he probably knows how to get persons in and out illegally. He would be part of that underworld where he knows which boat to jump in, where to jump in, how to disappear, because he knows how to make women disappear. He must have been considered high risk. Must have been. We don't live, it's not a matter of he has to have a private jet. We live in Trinidad and Tobago on an island where people come in through illegal means all the time.
Ms. Walker, we're gonna have to end it there for now. But thank you very much for your time, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you guys for keeping this conversation up.
Certainly. Well, I'm waiting for updates from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, as I'm sure you are, and the rest of Trinidad and Tobago as well, because a 9-year memory. Well, it's our responsibility to ensure that these conversations continue. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Have a good day. Ms. Marsha Walker joining me this morning on AM Prime.